If you clicked on this video, I'm willing to bet a few things. Either one, you're thinking about buying an xTool M1 machine. Number two, you've bought it already and not sure where to start. Or number three, you've bought it, you've made a few mistakes, and now you think you should watch a few videos. Well, I'm a beginner too. I've just received this M1 machine, so I'm going to show you how I set it up, a few beginner projects, and of course the mistakes that I made so you don't have to. Okay, let's have a look. If the tool looks large, it's about the same size as a standard printer, so not too bad if you've got the space for it on a craft table or workbench. If you're one of those people that already has your M1 at home and haven't got it out of the box yet because you're not sure where to start, then let me reassure you. From unboxing this to actually getting started cutting a first project, I would guess took less than an hour. There's plenty of extra things in these boxes that I haven't even opened yet, and you don't need to understand everything before you can get started. Now this is the deluxe set, so there are a couple of additional things that don't come with the standard package. One of those is the rotary set, so you can engrave round objects like tumblers. And also the deluxe material package, so this comes with a lot more supplies to get you started initially. But this is not much more complicated than plug it in and go. Only one of two things you need to assemble before your machine is ready to go is the exhaust pipe for the smoke and fumes. It's important to assemble this correctly, and the end of the pipe needs to go out of the window. And the last thing to do when setting up your machine is to take the blade holder out, put a new blade in, and then simply put it back into the slot. It's magnetic, so it should be quite straightforward. And then, believe it or not, the machine is ready to go. So many materials came with the deluxe materials package. Got a wooden phone holder, metal tags for pet collars, gift tags, slate coasters, wood coasters. There's a lot to get started with. One of the best things you can do before starting any project is to do test cuts on your material. I'll do a separate video on how to make these. But essentially, this is how to test the perfect settings for your material that you can repeat every time. First things first, a test of 3 of the gift tags. I'm going to put some simple shapes in them. One with masking tape, one with slightly dampened wood, and one just as it is to see the results. Masking tape and the dampened wood should help with any of the scorch marks around the shape. So we'll see how much this has an impact. The triangle had the masking tape, the star was dampened wood, and the rectangle was just as is, so it definitely helps to use tape or dampen your wood first. To use your machine, you're going to need to download some software called the xTool Creative Space from their website. And it's free, very simple to install, and very user-friendly. If you're familiar with the Cricut design space, then you'll probably be comfortable in this program too. For the first project, I'm going to make a personalised rose because it's close to Valentine's Day and I feel like this would be a really pretty thing to receive. The first thing I needed was an image of a rose, and within this software they do have images of flowers, but there wasn't the perfect one for what I wanted. So I got an image from Canva, downloaded it as a PNG and imported it into this software. With your M1 machine, you can do 3 different things. You can score, which is to create a line. You can engrave, which creates a picture like a photo in grayscale or black and white, or you can cut out the shapes. In addition, I'm going to add a word to the stem of the rose just to make it a little bit more interesting, but you could add a name or a date, and this would be a really lovely thing to give someone. To add the word love to the stem, I simply combined it within the tool so it read it as one total image, and then it cut around all of the edges as though it was one image. You can see I've got masking tape down to help with any scorching. I've already done some test cuts on this piece, so I know what settings will work for this one. It is doing the scoring first, so it's making the picture of the rose, and then the final step will be to cut, because cutting it will release it from the board around it. It's really important that you do keep an eye on your project as it's working, because if you have slightly wrong settings, then you could get a little flame. If that happens, just cancel the project and it should be fine. The orangey glass is a safety feature. It means you don't need goggles when using this laser. And also, if you were to lift up the lid while it was working, it would auto shut off as well, which is another nice safety feature. Because it's a little bit of an intricate design, it actually took a minute to take off the masking tape from all the different details, but this wasn't really a problem. And if you have air assist, which is an additional tool that I don't have, then that reduces the chances of scorching your wood too. I made this rose on walnut plywood and I think it's really lovely. I would be happy receiving this, or I could even see it on a brooch or a necklace or something like that. For this second project, I'm going to attempt some engraving on basswood plywood that comes in the materials set. Again, I've gone back to Canva. I've chosen a picture of a very pretty cottage. Let me know if you recognise this. And for pictures, it's a good idea to remove the background. I'm just doing this in Canva, just drawing around it. And then also make the picture black and white by putting the saturation level down to 0. And then save it as a PNG and import into XCS. Once you've imported your image, by refreshing the machine in the top right, you can see what it looks like on the base plate within the machine. You have some options for what type of picture you'd like to try and engrave. I played around with this a few times. You should also look at the grayscale and sharpness settings. There's no one size fits all. You just have to do a few tests to get it right. And you're putting in settings for the power of the laser, the speed of the laser, and how many times you want it to go over the same place. My first few tests, some of the picture was too dark or the laser was too slow, which meant that it scorched the darker areas, and that's because the laser was staying in the same place for too long. There is a red dot in the machine and you want to place your material as central to that as possible. The red dot is the measuring tool and it tells you how thick your material is, so it gives you the best chance of getting the right settings on your piece. One important step is to frame it. This is the last step before pressing go on the process. And this is essentially a dummy run showing you where the laser will be placed. So with the framing correct, then you press go. The processing screen will show you as a wheel how far along your project has to go. This entire project took about 35 minutes to engrave. And as you need to be near it whilst it's processing, it's a good idea to have something else to be doing at the time too. I actually paused the machine while I had to go out, came back to it and it finished it off, and there was no problem with having paused it in the middle of the process. I did my test on this plywood, but I could see this as a beautiful housewarming gift, or even a sign for your own home. You could put "Welcome to our home" on it around the edges. It would be really lovely on a really nice piece of wood. For my final project, I'm going to create a layered necklace. As I'm playing around, I'm going to use it of my brand logo for tea and forget-me-nots. Going back to trusty Canva, I found this minimalist floral wreath I'm going to use for the outside of the necklace shape. The floral elements I'm going to score, and the circle is going to be the outside that is going to get cut out. The first step is to outline the shape. This means that it's the outline going around the circle and around the flowers that will get cut out, leaving space for the flowers to stay as a picture. I added in the T and from my Tea and Forget-Me-Nots logo, but because this was an image, it wouldn't cut out. That would only engrave as it was. So I used the outline tool to turn that into lines that could be cut. I then used the combine feature or unite to attach it to the outer circle of the necklace so that it would be as secure as possible by being attached to several different points. There was quite a lot of back and forth and working out exactly how I was going to get this to work, because I was adding different elements into it and there were different sections I needed cutting, different sections I needed engraving, and others I needed scoring. So it was a definite trial and error of what was going to work. When you're working with a little bit of complicated design, it's really helpful to put things into different layers. You can select the element, right click, move, and then it moves to a different layer. Then you can hide the different layers that you're not working on, and it makes it just a little bit less fussy and easier to see what you're doing. The really nice thing about the camera feature here is that it shows you live what it looks like. So if you've got your picture in the right place, this is where you can move it around. However, the wording was so tiny, it was getting a bit too difficult to see the individual letters, and also in a couple of the tests it was getting a bit too scorched as well. Initially I made 2 layers of the entire circle, but where I'd put the holes in for where the necklace chain would attach, my jump rings were not big enough to go through 6mm, so double width of the necklace. So I had to change that so the second layers was just over the wording instead. Once I'd worked out which elements to combine, my tests were mostly on checking if the lettering was thick enough to be cut and still be stable. I'm a big fan of wooden necklaces. They're some of my favourite ones that I own. So actually having a personalised tea and forget-me-nots necklace that I've made myself is really lovely. And I know a few other people who would love a similar necklace with their own brand logo on too. And I've said I would give you a few of my mistakes as well, so you don't have to do them. So those shapes that I cut out at the start, I didn't have the thickness set right. Now I've got a very personalised base plate of different shapes on my cutter. I attempted some fabric to cut out a heart. It did not work at all. I was wondering why this cutting mat was moving around on the machine. If you're familiar with a Cricut mat, you know what this is like. However, on this one, what I discovered, there's some sticky plastic to take off of the back as well, and that keeps it secure in the machine. And finally, one that you didn't see, my very first attempt at anything was completely missed the mark on this gift tag. However, in under 1 week, you can just see the progress to these lovely craft projects that I'm really proud of. So as long as you're brave enough to take it out of the box, then there's so much potential waiting. If you've got to this point in the video, then I hope you found it really helpful, either in deciding to buy the M1 machine or be more confident in the projects that you can take on. If you did find it helpful, please consider subscribing. It makes a huge difference to smaller channels like mine, and there'll be definitely more M1 content coming up because I've barely even scratched the surface. I've got leather items, fabric, canvas, slate. There's so much we can do and we can learn along together. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye. For more information on the machine, I did an entire review over on my blog at teaandforgetmenots.com. I'll leave it linked in the description so you can find it easily. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, bye.